Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Pack.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. We're flying solo this evening as Tim is on assignment, date night with the wife. We've got Emilio, God knows where he is, and Jacob may hop in here, but I highly doubt it. So we're just going to hang out and talk some Packers this evening. Hopefully everybody had a great day. I know a cold front sweeping through the country. Everybody's probably pretty chilly this evening as we got, I don't know, about an inch of snow here in Tennessee. And, man, there's been playoff football on all day long with snow flying in the air. It doesn't get any better than that. So hopefully everyone out there is staying warm, staying safe. Let's go to the chat right off the bat here. We got Chris in the house. Says, I'm still riding off the tears of Dan Campbell and all their obnoxiously whiny fans. Fans for 2 years, of course, right? Back to business. Yes, sir. It's been a great day, man. And I love how all of a sudden, you know, during the season when they called us whiners for the bad officiating, all of a sudden they're complaining about the officiating. It's funny how that works, right? Eric Sutherland in the chat. Chris Ann, I've been getting drunk off the tears of the Lions fans here in Michigan all day long. Man, they're in Michigan, Eric. I bet it is wild right now. Some of the videos that came out over there on the intraweb, obviously trending across Twitter, across X, some of the fans leaving early in a playoff game was wild to me. And then also hearing them say same old Lions as they're leaving the stadium is just wild. Like, you won 15 games and you're already belling on your team. It just says a lot about your fan base. It really does. So here we go. Ian in the chat. Biggest loser of the playoffs is the Bears. They passed on Jalen Carter and Jaden Daniels. Think about that. Man, that's wild. And again, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, I think, seemed like the most talented player coming out of college, but he and Jaden were pretty close in my opinion. But with Jaden, you've seen his ability to make things happen with his legs, and there's no wasted motion. Like with Caleb, he tends to like to scramble around in the backfield the entire time and look for the big play. I say big play down the field, but he refuses to throw it down the field, right? He'll scramble around in the backfield and then look to throw. As where Jaden Daniels will, drop back, one read, two read, the protection breaks down. Let's just get what the defense is giving us here, right? Jaden Daniels is a dog. Now, we seen that with C.J. Stroud last year, right? Now, I'm trying to be fair to Jaden Daniels because typically quarterbacks will take a step back in their second year because there's tape on them now, and you're going to have to kind of figure out other ways to convert on those crucial third downs when you know the defense is trying to take away what you do well. With Jaden Daniels, to me, it feels like, and I want to know what you guys think in the chat, it feels like Jaden Daniels is way more effective in his rookie year than C.J. Stroud was, albeit C.J. Stroud had a great rookie season as well, So that's kind of how I see those two. But, yeah, the Bears too, man, just trying to load up on receiver rather than building the trenches. That seems to be their MO. They just do everything backwards all the time, right? That's just the way it goes for sure. Appreciate everybody swinging through. If you would, hit that like button for us. We appreciate you making us a part of your evening. Let's get the show started with a little bit of sad news here as Chuck Lane has passed away. If you guys don't know who Chuck Lane was, I was reading up on him just a second ago as Cliff Crystal, the Packers team historian, wrote an article here. I won't read the entire article. You guys go give it a view, give it a click, all that good stuff. Cliff just does amazing work. But just a little bit of who Chuck Lane was. Chuck Lane, former director of public relations for the Green Bay Packers under Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr. He died Sunday morning, January 19th, 2025 in Green Bay. Lane was 82 years old. If I remember correctly, he arrived in 1966. So he didn't have a whole lot of time with Lombardi, but he did get a little bit of experience with him, and then obviously lasting through the Bart Starr era as well. It says Lane also was heavily involved in the organization of the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame Association. In fact, he was one of 7 men in attendance at the association's first meeting in February of 1970. Chuck Lane and I, co-chairs of the association, said Tom Hutchinson, another leading organizer. Lane was a member of the Hall's original board and selection committee. At the time of his death, he was a director emeritus, I think I'm saying that right, of what is now the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame. So not only did he work as a kind of a PR guy for Vince Lombardi there starting in 1966 and through the Bart Starr era, but he was also a man who very, very vital to the creation and obviously the, being able to sustain the Packers Hall of Fame. So again, thoughts and prayers go out to Chuck Lane's family, and shout out to Cliff Crystal for putting together a great article. You guys, it's a lengthy article. It tells a lot about Chuck Lane. Go in there and read it yourself. Give it a click. And I think it was Wes Hykowitz that tweeted it out. So make sure you go give it a retweet as well. Let's spread that work around. It was just an awesome piece. So I see what J. Cole says here in the chat. Back to making fun of the Lions, right? J. Cole says, I click on a Lions podcast, very somber tone. It's like a funeral almost. It's a difference between Packer fans and Lions fans. It's a good point. And you know what I noticed too about watching the post-game shows last night? And in no way, shape, or form is this tooting our own horn. I'm just we do everything with this show kind of from the fans' perspective. That's the way we've always tried to do things. We only had a podcast for a couple of years now. It's not like we've been around forever, right? But we always try to look at things from a standpoint of like, what would the fans want? What do I want to know right now? It's really what we're doing is diving into what we think is interesting and what we want to figure out about which direction the team's going. And we're just kind of going live while we do it, if you guys haven't caught on, right? I watch some of these other podcasts, and I'm like, I listened to you guys for 40 minutes, and I learned nothing. There's nothing about the future. There's nothing about here's the direction the team needs to go in. It's just complaining, right? And, again, that's why some fans probably don't like our show. But, again, that's what we wanted to create, was something where it's actually productive as opposed to – just coming in here and turning it into a complaint fest, right? So, I watched some of them too, and they were outrageous. J. Cole, it was hard to watch. It really was. It was kind of embarrassing too, because the host would go from, "Listen, this isn't a big deal. This ain't a big deal at all," and literally 2 minutes later, it was like the sky was falling, and what are we going to do? And is Jared Goff the guy? Is Dan Campbell the guy? It was just hilarious, man. So, anyway, appreciate you hanging out in the chat here with us. Jay. So here's what I was thinking tonight. We've been kind of doing a little bit of deep diving on certain positions. And, what we covered earlier today, I should say, I want to say, what was it we looked into earlier? We did not get too deep into cornerback, and cornerback is definitely one of those positions of need for us. There's quite a few corners a little later in the draft. I've got me a cheat sheet together here. We got the top 100 cheat sheet, which is really important, along with the top free agents. But now I'm starting to dig a little bit deeper into the prospects. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just take a quick look at the cornerback position here for the draft? And you guys just bear with me. Obviously, when you're flying solo, it's going to be a little bit of dead air as we get everything set up and keep this show moving. It's going to suck. We know that. The show's going to suck, but we'll do our best to at least prevent dead air here. So let's go to the draft board on PFF and just take a quick look at the cornerbacks that are available, the ones that catch our attention right now. Obviously, you're not going to have an opportunity to draft some of these top-end corners, right? Like a Travis Hunter or a Will Johnson, they'll probably be gone. Benjamin Morrison may be gone as well. Although I'm not as high on Benjamin Morrison, and I'm a Notre Dame fan, right? We'll talk about that a little later into the draft season. But, yeah, when it comes to corner, what I'm thinking is like, okay, is anybody going to be there that's worthy of the 23rd pick in my eyes? And then as well, a little later in the draft, does it make sense to wait because you might have a cluster of these really good corners later in the draft? That makes sense. We got Josh Martin with the super chat. Appreciate you, Josh. Ben Johnson told the team he's leaving. I seen that, Josh. It kind of, it's funny too. I put the tweet out too. Like, I was being somewhat sarcastic. We know he was most likely going to get a head coaching job, but I said, guess he's done with this poverty franchise, right? Because that's what they keep calling the Packers. The Lions fans keep calling the Packers a poverty franchise. But what's going to happen to that team when Ben Johnson leaves? Think about that. Can Antoine Randall step up and kind of fill that void and be an OC? He's the first name that comes to mind for me, but I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. But Ben Johnson, yeah, he was definitely a difference maker in Detroit this year. And then even with Ben Johnson, you've seen Jared Goff just turn into a pumpkin last night. And it's so bad that they were trying to let the receivers throw at times, right? which is hilarious to think about, honestly. So, yeah, appreciate the super chat, John. I've seen the same thing there, or Josh, I should say, that Ben Johnson told the team he is leaving. But I appreciate you supporting the channel here. All right, so Travis Hunter is the top prospect in the draft according to PFF's big board. Some people see him as a wide receiver. I think most see him as a cornerback. Obviously, he won the Heisman this year. I'm not as big on Travis Hunter as most people are. What he did this year was amazing, right? And during the football season, we talked about it over and over and over. Like, this dude looks like the best football player, in all of college football. But if you look back to last year, I mean, he was the 224th graded corner last year. So he took a huge step this year. Now, the year before, an 82.0, and of course, jumped in this year to an 88.2. So if you took his two best years, he's one of the best corners to ever play college football, to be honest with you. Not the best, don't mistake me here, but one of the best, right? But I worry a little bit about 2023. Like, okay, is he really worthy of a top 3 pick if he has a little bit of inconsistency? And again, this is us kind of running it through the filter of PFF is everything. And we know PFF is not everything, right? So Will Johnson is the second-ranked corner. He's 6th overall on the big board out of Michigan. I think he'll probably be gone before the Packers pick. No chance there. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. He might be around, but for obvious reasons with the hip injury, right? Now, last year, he graded out pretty well, a 79.4. This year, he had 314 snaps, and before the injury, it was a 71.4. So he took a slight step back, although I know scouts are going to absolutely love Benjamin Morrison. He's one of those dudes that they've talked about a lot in terms of projecting him to the NFL level. I'm just not as big on him. Next is Jahdae Barron. This one is one that really grabs my attention. He's from Texas. He's 5'11". He's 23 years old. Obviously played a lot of good competition down there. So in 2022, a 76.9, and then he falls to a 71.5, and then he jumps to a 90.8. That 90.8, guys, when you compare that to Travis Hunter, right? He scored better according to PFF than Travis Hunter did this year, right? And the reason I don't want you to think that I think Jahdae Barron is going to be a better corner than Travis Hunter. I'm simply saying Travis Hunter at number 1 or get Jahdae Barron at 28. You see what I'm saying? Like, to me, there's more value there as opposed to taking Travis Hunter. Both of them could end up being busts, right? Can't rule that out. So that's kind of how I see Jahdae Barron there. Now, again, playing at Texas, let's see what he did in terms of against decent competition here. We slide on down. That's the screen we want right there. So he lined up in the slot 124 snaps. He was mostly on the corner at 679. He was also in the box 141 snaps. So he's got some versatility. It sounds like he was probably following the number 1 from time to time when they were in man coverage. When you look at the people they played, they played, Colorado State, I believe here, had an 88.4. At Michigan, a 77.2. All right. Georgia at home, a 74.7. That's top talent, obviously. Florida put together a pretty good campaign a little later in the year, and that's when they played them. This was, week 11, a 79.5 against them. Arkansas on the road, a 77. Clemson at home, a 78.5. Georgia, a 68.9. And Ohio State had a little bit of an off game, a 62.2 there. Towards the end. I think it was in the playoff, right? That was a playoff game. So I don't know, man. Jahdae Barron is one that grabs my attention because he's got some slot experience there as well. Again, not a whole lot, but enough to go, hey, 124 snaps in the slot, some versatility that you could potentially move him around. His coverage grade, 91.3. Run defense grade, 83.3. Man coverage grade 68.9. That's above the 3-quarter mark, above the median line. His zone coverage grade 91.8. It's pegged out. He might have the best zone coverage grade in all of college football. So what did we do the most this year? We played zone coverage, right? Mixed in a little bit of man, but it's mostly zone. To me, it just seems like a fit, right? And I think I seen somebody in the chat say he's too short. Josh Martin said he's too short. Are we going to do this again, guys? Are we going to continue to – and I'm not trying to bash you, Josh. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. We keep talking about, man, that first round, it seems like we always just go RAS. We go athletic ability. We go size, natural, man, this ball of clay, right? How about we start drafting football players? You know what I'm saying? Like the tape, the grades mean more to me than measurables. That's just me personally. I remember when Kyle Hamilton run that wonky 40-yard dash kind of sideways, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's going to destroy him. That's going to kill him." He falls to Baltimore, and he's one of the best safeties in the league, right? I just think we can overthink stuff like that. Now, what is tall enough? That's my question. Is it 6 foot? Is it 6'1"? Is it 6'2"? Because once you get above 6'1", you're getting into a very minute amount of players, and that's where I think GMs screw up and go, these two are kind of close. This guy's got the better tape, but he's got 2 inches on him. Let's go with the 2 inches taller. And next thing you know, you got a guy who, doesn't know whether to crap or go blind, so he closes one eye and farts, right? So like you're saying 6'1", right? So 2 inches. 2 inches is going to make us pass on a corner who's obviously played better than others. You see what I'm saying? Like, does that mean that you would take a corner that was 6'1", who, let's say the grades are everything, right? Let's do it this way. His grade was a 90.8. Let's say you had a corner that was 6'2" and had an 80.8 grade. Which one you taking? I know who I'm taking. If the grade was everything. If we knew for sure, hey, that's a true grade, an accurate depiction of who that player is, I'm going with the 90.8. I'm so sick of this whole got to take guys because they're built just absolutely perfectly in the mold. I don't know, man. I feel like, me personally, I feel like Detroit gets away from that a little bit, and it shows. They just got good football players. You guys remember Brian Branch, right? I was standing on the mountaintop for Brian Branch. Now, I remember a lot of Packer fans say, no, he's too short. Goody'd never drafted. He's a little undersized. He's a damn football player. He had let me put it this way, the lowest missed tackle percentage in the PFF era, right? And I can't even remember now if he was available when we picked. I just remember Packer fans being like, nah, too short. He's a stud. So, I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. So, could be wrong there for sure. McKnight in the chat says Myers before Humphrey. See, that's the one that's weird, right? Think about that. We found out last night Humphrey had a better RAS, I think, than Myers. And I wasn't 100% sure there. But why did we covet Myers so much? Right? Why did we covet Myers so much? I have a feeling it's the athleticism, because we wanted someone who could get out to that next level in duo and things like that, and move laterally in zone blocking. But also it was that 6'5" frame, that reach, right? Just didn't work out. Deadfish with a great point. Jair Alexander's 5'10". See what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I don't. If we're only going to draft people who are above 6 foot, boy, that really narrows the field down. So I didn't plan on spending that much time on Jahdae Barron, but here we are. He's one of them that made my short list of corners for sure. Let's keep it moving here. Next, you got Trey Amos, another one that made my list here from Ole Miss. Man, I'm telling you, this guy, Lane Kiffin, whether you like him or not, he is churning out some NFL talent this year. There's no doubt about that, man. Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. Here's you one, 6'1", 190 pounds. So you put that to bed, right? Lower grade than Jahdae Brown. However, more consistent across the years with 76.9 in 2023 and then an 85.6 this past year. So you've seen a steady increase. I probably like Trey Amos more than Jahdae Brown or Jahdae Barron. I'm going to put them in order eventually. What I'm going to do something different this year. We're going to have our draft board. It's going to have, the goal is 300 prospects. I'm going to try to get the top 300 prospects on the draft board this year. And then I'm also going to have kind of my favorites list, which honestly, it's probably going to consist of, I don't know, somewhere around 50 prospects. And it's not going to be every position. It's going to be the positions of need, so we can really hone in on what are we trying to accomplish in the draft, as a team, right? So Trey Amos, though, I think he's a stud. Coverage grade 85.0, zone coverage grade 78.0, run defense grade 81.0, man coverage grade 75.4. Let's look at where he had some of his best games. At South Carolina, 81.6. Oklahoma at home, 73.4. Georgia at home, 74.6. Those are probably the most important games in terms of level of competition. On the road at LSU, 68.8, but they had a down year. So, yeah, Georgia and South Carolina, played a couple pretty good ball games there. I really, really like Trey Amos. He's one that's, like I said, on the short list. And he's got that size you're looking for there. I think it was Josh that said that, right? Was it Josh that was looking for the 6'1" guys? So United Bates, Jair's listed at like 5'10". Pac-Man was 5'10". Revis listed at 5'11". If it was like 5'7", 5'8", I'd be going, yeah, we can't do that, right? Especially early in the draft. But you get to that 5'10" mark, man, okay, that's a decent size receiver. That'll work, right? Moving along here, next is Shavon or Shaven, however you said it, Ravel. Now here's a tall boy out of East Carolina. All right, 6'3", 193 PFF grades. Last year 81.5. This year 82.5. So he definitely stabilized, right? Better zone coverage corner than man coverage. 81.8 zone coverage grade, 69.5 man coverage grade, overall coverage grade of 83.6, and run defense right about the median mark at a 70. Completion percentage was through the roof in a good way. He only allowed 40.9% of passes completed when thrown to the guy that he was covering. Now, obviously, grades by game, they've only got 3 listed here because he played at East Carolina, right? And probably played far fewer snaps, so he was dealing with an injury, I would imagine. So last year he had 651. This year 204. So we can't get a real good grab, although we know East Carolina, not a whole lot of competition there. I've got him on the list. I've been getting a lot of tweets from people saying they like him. I'm just not as big on Shavon Ravel because of that lack of competition. Let's see. Next, we got Darian Porter out of Iowa State in the 43 mark. Or 43 spot, 69.7, 79.3. Not very high on him. My next one would be Zy Alexander right here with LSU. 6'2", 194. PFF grade starting in 2022, 79.9. Dropped to a 63.4, and then got right back up to an 83.5. So that would kind of suggest that, hey, right around the 80 mark is probably, about where his ceiling or his steady area is, right? Where you're going to see him at the most, at least at the college level. Coverage grade 84.6, zone coverage grade 84.6, man coverage 66.3, about at the 3/4 mark. Not great, but not horrible, right? Some of his big games this year was Ole Miss at home, 88.6. They had a high-powered offense, if I remember correctly as well. On the road to Florida, 80.7. So put together a pretty good year. That 6'2" is going to attract a lot of scouts. I would not be surprised if Goody sets up a top 30 with that dude right there. He just kind of fits the mold there, in terms of he's got the height. The steadiness is there as long as there's no injury history. We'll dive into that a little bit later. Usually injury status is the last thing I add on my board because I don't want it to persuade my board at all. Some people go through and go, yeah, but he's hurt. Let's start him low. He's hurt. Let's start him low. I like to put all the information in and then comb through and find the injury history and then tag them red. That way it does not affect the way I see the prospect throughout the crunching of the numbers and putting them in the right spot, at least the spot I think is correct. So that's how we'll roll with that. Next, you got Maxwell Harrison. Again, a Kentucky boy. Last year, guys, he was solid, 81.8. This year, took a huge step back. Of course, he got injured as well, only 297 snaps. So he's one that they consider in the top 100. I'm not as big on him in terms of compared to Zy Alexander, Trey Amos, or Jahdae Barron. Next, I believe, is O'Donnell Fortune, if I remember correctly. This is one that kind of grabbed my attention out of South Carolina. 6'1", 185 pounds. PFF grade in 22, 78, then 68, then this year 85.8. He was the 18th highest graded cornerback in all of college football. Coverage grade 90.2. Man coverage grade 79.6. Zone coverage grade 89.5. Some of his best games, the one that sticks out to me the most, on the road in Alabama, 88.5 was his PFF grade. So you talk about, showing up on the road against a team like Bama, that's really, really impressive to me. So, again, as far as his snaps, too, he's mostly just an outside corner, although he did play 55 in the box and 15 at the slot position. So that's kind of where I see him at. He's one of those guys that grabs my attention, but it's probably going to be a little bit later in the draft if I was okay with them taking him. And, again, O'Donnell Fortune is 147th ranked according to PFF. All right, next one on my short list is Mac McWilliams. All right, Mac McWilliams, if we could find him here. I know you're in here, buddy. Here we go. So he played at UCF. All right, PFF grade 74.7. Then he jumped to a 66.5. Then he jumped all the way to an 81.2 this past year. Now UCF, who did they play? Right, they played Deion Sanders as Colorado, had a 72.2. They were on the road to Florida against the Gators, 73.8. And then they played Arizona, 76.2, which I don't think Arizona has a pretty solid program. So do the PFF grades look good? Yeah. You know, he's 5'10", 185, so he doesn't have crazy good size. But the thing that worries me the most about him is that competition. So that's someone that you would like to see maybe if he's at the Senior Bowl. Let's see if he's going to be – I'll try to cross-check these two if they're smaller schools. The reason the Senior Bowl is so important to me in these situations is you get to see these guys against top talent, right? And where you may have looked at them in the past or, throughout the year like, crap, man, he ain't going to be he ain't going to his grades ain't going to matter as much because he didn't play against good competition, right? In this case, though, if you can get them in an all-star game, you can see them against other top competition. Now, he's not been invited to the Senior Bowl to the best of my knowledge, but it looks like he will be at the East-West Shrine game, okay? So we need to look for that all-star game there, the East-West Shrine game. He may be maybe that's one that you can kind of keep an eye on there, and we'll make sure that we make notes of who's going to be in what all-star game as they pop up. But Mac McWilliams made my list. We'll see if he stays on the list because I'm going to try to cut this down a little bit later for sure. Next on my list, I think we got to go to page 2, I believe, is going to be Kobe Bryant. And what a name, right? It's a hell of a name to have to live up to. He played for Kansas, 6'1", 175 pounds, so he's a little light, but definitely a taller corner. Guys, he's gotten better every year. Starting in 22, 70.3, 77.4, 80.9. He's a senior this year, or was a senior this year, right? When you look at where he lined up, 641 on the corner, 60 in the box, and 42 in the slot. So he probably followed the number one a little bit from time to time. Coverage grade was only a 76.9. Man coverage grade was a 71.6. That's solid. Zone coverage grade 74.7, and that's above the 3-quarter mark. And then run defense grade 91.3. So he's kind of a physical corner there, right? If you could kind of convert him to play a little slot, play a little closer to the box, that's probably where he's most valuable. But we'll see how he does if he happens to be at any kind of all-star game. Let me go back up and just check real quick and see if Kobe Bryant, he will be at the East-West Shrine game. So that's the all-star game we need to keep up with there. In terms of his big games this year, at West Virginia at 83.6, TCU at home at 83.1, at Baylor a 73.9. So not a whole lot of competition there where you go, wow, he went up against top competition. So that East-West Shrine game is going to be huge for him in terms of his standing with the scouts for sure. So Kobe Bryant, another one to watch for. Next is Jabbar Muhammad, I think is his name. Yeah, right here. So his PFF grades, 76.3, 79.4, 76.3. All right. So that's Jabbar Muhammad. He's out of Oregon, 5'10", 185. All right. So you're kind of getting on that lower end of the size, right? But again, 5'10", that's all right. It checks out. Coverage grade, 80.3. Zone coverage grade, 82.9. His weak spot is man coverage at a 63.4. Run defense grade is a 57.1, not very physical in that regard. Completion percentage allowed is only a 46.8%. That's right in between the top and the 3-quarter mark. In terms of competition, Boise State had a pretty good program this year. At home, he had a 75.3 against Boise State. On the road at UCLA, a 74.7. On the road at Michigan, a 72.3. And then Penn State at home, that might have been – that wasn't the playoff, was it? I'm trying to think here. It says CC. Was that the conference championship? Yeah. Okay, so in the conference championship against Penn State, it says at home, but, it was obviously at a neutral site, a 70. If I'm reading that right, were they in the conference? Yeah, Oregon was in the conference championship, right? Yeah. 70 against Penn State. That's solid. That's a big game right there. And then, of course, in the it says bowl game, so I'm guessing, let's see, Oregon, that was when they got boat raced by Ohio State, right? In the playoff, 62.4 there. So, again, Jabbar Muhammad, keep an eye on him. Let's see if he's going to be at any of the All-Star games here. I imagine he probably is. Where are you at, good sir? He may be a little higher on the consensus big board. Give me just a second here. There he is. Yeah, he'll be at the East-West Shrine game. The consensus big board has him in the 153 spot. All right, so that's where he is sitting at. Next on our list, actually, that's all the corners I have on my short list here. Okay, so again, I'm comprising my favorite prospects this year to try to come up with like a top 50 list at the positions of need for the Packers. So when it comes to cornerback, that short list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, only 8 cornerbacks made the cut on my list, and a couple of those might get knocked off as well. So we'll continue to monitor that as we move closer to, obviously, the NFL draft. Here's what I'm thinking. We got about 10 minutes. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do a rapid-fire mock draft real quick. Keep in mind, I can't include the chat too much in terms of making the pick because we'll just be sitting here waiting for everybody to decide, right? To put your picks in. So what I'm going to do is just do my mock draft, okay? And we need to come up with a scenario, though. We definitely need a scenario of, okay, what are the parameters here, right? What are the parameters? Is Jair on the team? That's a question, right? Did we go out and sign a center? Did we sign Dalman, right? Or do we just want to pretend like, hey, you know what? Forget everything else. Let's just try to put together the best draft class based off the needs we think we may have, right? We could go that route as well. So we're going to have to go quick if we're going to go 7, but we're going to do it, all right? We're going to go with the Packers. We'll leave this pretty much the same, and we'll see how it shakes out. This will be a good test run for the rest of the year. I'm sure you guys can see this okay. So let's do this too. Let's say no trading, all right? You guys know I'm trading back in the first round. Sometimes you can get a little bit cheesy with the first round. So using my little cheat sheet here, if I can, all right, I'm going to try to. Now, I can't mark them off because I don't want to lose this sheet, but I do have the needs listed. Here are the needs I have listed. We need a starting 3-tech. We need a starting center. We need a starting wide receiver. We need a starting offensive lineman. If we can get a starting caliber offensive lineman. We also need 2 backup offensive linemen, in my opinion. We need a starting corner and 2 backup corners, all right? And then we need 2 backup linebackers. Now, listen, that doesn't mean we're going to fill all those as starters. It just simply means when we pick, if there's a player or 2 that we really, really like, I'm going to run it through the filter of, okay, is that an actual need there? We got 4 pretty major needs. Now, I'm going to prioritize 3-tech. I think it's more important. I'm going to prioritize center as well over everything else because I just think that's the most important. So here we go. Let's start this puppy, and hopefully we don't screw anything up here. Now, how in the world did Kenneth Grant fall all the way to the Packers at 23? That's a wild thought, isn't it? We're going to go, and this is the first one we've done live, so let's kind of see how this shakes out. If we can, is it just all – okay, so we can sort by positions of need if we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to check defensive line, all right? We're also going to check center. I believe it'll let us check these as we go. Hopefully it does. Yes, it does. We'll go interior offensive line. We'll go defensive tackle. We'll go ahead and select wide receiver. And let's also select cornerback. Yep, we'll select corner. And let's see who the best prospects available are. So you got a Kenneth Grant, right, in the 19 spot. His average draft position is 20th, and we're picking 23rd. We need a D tackle, right? So if we were to kind of look at the cheat sheet here that we have of the defensive line position, and we need to go really fast on the later picks. I'm just going to kind of lay this out here real quick. In terms of defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant is 19th on the big board according to PFF. 82.7 was his grade. I mean, yeah, this is a no-brainer, right, guys? Do we take Kenneth Grant here? Yeah, I think we take Kenneth Grant. This is one of those spots where you probably trade back, right? You probably trade back in this situation. We need a 3-tech. I'm not drafting for I know some people are probably thinking, no, you need to take a corner. You need to take a corner. To me, it's not as important a position. Look at what the defense did, right? Look at what the defense did without Jair Alexander this year. I mean, he missed most of the year, and we ended up with a top 10, some would say top 5 defense. Now, the same thing can be said for 3-Tech, but what's the big knock? Kenny Clark, right? Kenny Clark has underperformed. He's overpaid. The way I'm viewing it is if we can get out of that contract next year and we go ahead and draft our 3-Tech of the future, he steps right into that role. We cut Kenny next year or move on from Kenny next year, free up that cap space outside of the cap penalty, and you got your 3-Tech in-house. If Devontae Wyatt pops this year, having the new rookie on a rookie contract out of the 23rd pick will probably give you enough space. If Devontae just wows us, right, then you go ahead and re-sign Devontae Wyatt, and now you got your 2 interior defensive linemen for the next 4 years, right? So that's kind of how I'm seeing that. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant. I did not expect him to be available. If he was not available here, I don't know if I would take Tyleik Williams. I'd probably go with a corner in that situation, but the value is just too good. We're going to go Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle. So let's mark that need off now. We got the defensive tackle that we wanted. All right, here we are now, pick 55. Let's go ahead and put back in here interior offensive lineman. Let's go wide receiver. Let's go cornerback. And that should have all of our starter needs as it sits right now. All right. Best available, Jack Beck. Did he make our cheat sheet here? Let's see. Did Jack Beck make the cheat sheet? Wide receiver, Jack Beck. And we haven't gone through these. We'll do that tomorrow. Jack Beck is on the list. All right. So he's the top available according to PFF here. You got Zy Alexander, who we've been really big on, right, at corner. You got Tyler Booker, a guard. He did not make my small list here. Jonah Monheim did, but I don't see Jonah Monheim anywhere close here, so you're not really – you'd be reaching if you go after him. Jack Beck, Tyler Booker, Zy Alexander are the top choices. Zy Alexander is on the list here out of LSU. Kind of talked about him earlier. 79.9 in 2022, 63.4 in 23, jumped back up to an 83.5 last year. Zone coverage grade 84.6. Yeah, to me, this makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and get a corner in case Jai isn't here, right? Who could start opposite of Carrington Valentine and or Keyshawn Nixon. If you look at receiver with Jack Beck, solid prospect, right? 65, 62, and then jump to an 82. But to me, corner is probably more important. Center is the most important thing. Tyler Booker does not have any center experience, so it's unrealistic to think of that. However, though, if you took Tyler Booker here or the best guard available in this situation, you could kick Elton Jenkins over to center, right? This is where it gets tricky because there's just no true center. There's not many true centers early in the draft here. There's a Tate Ratledge. Did he make our list? He did not make the short list, I don't believe. No, sir, he did not. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go Zy Alexander here, guys. We're going to go corner out of LSU, Zy Alexander. All right, so we got a corner, or at least we took a swing on that corner, right? We still need other corners based off how the room looks right now and us not knowing if Jair is going to be back. All right, so now let's go ahead and reset it again. Let's key in on the starters. We're going center, wide receiver, right, which is, again, offensive line. So let's go ahead and go interior offensive line. Let's just do offensive line in general here. We'll include the tackles this time. We're also going to include the wide receiver. So if we're still trying to fill that starter need, here's what's best available. Here's Charles Grant. We talked about Charles Grant, and this is tough for me. Charles Grant had a hell of a year, right? But again, it's William and Mary. Look at his PFF grade, guys. 78, 76, and then he jumped all the way to a 90. He's a true left tackle, though, right? Jordan Morgan was too. Jordan Morgan had never played guard before. The Packers love drafting tackles and moving them to guard. His run block grade, 89.9. Pass block grade, 87.3. True pass set, pass block grade, almost pegged completely out of 76.7. His zone blocking grade, 92.8. So let's think about this. As Joseph says in the chat, Charles ain't helping you next year. Really doesn't feel like it, does it? And we're not trying to predict what the Packers are going to do. This is our draft, right? What would we do in this situation? Could Charles Grant, and again, you're picking him at 87, so How much is he going to contribute here? We're in the third round, right? Pick 23 of the third round. How many times has the third round started? Last year, I'm trying to think of who the third round pick was. I can't even remember right off the bat. You guys help me with that in the chat. Year before it's Tucker Kraft. He didn't start his first year, right? So third rounders, Joseph, they usually don't. So it's more about filling the need, right? Filling the need. Tate Ratledge, and I see Joseph mentioning Tate Ratledge here, 69, 76, 74. But again, played more talent, right? Played better talent. His best game was at Texas, 74.6. All right. Another game he played that was really well at Ole Miss, 70.4. Not bad. This is tough. I don't even have Tate Ratledge on my short list, to be honest with you. So Charles Grant, if I was going off my list, Charles Grant would be the pick here. Donovan Jackson, we do not have on the short list as well. This is a perfect situation to trade back, right? And again, we need a center, really an offensive lineman, and a wide receiver that we're going, hey, to potentially make an impact this year, or at least try to, right? There's a bunch of wide receivers here. On the wide receiver list, who do we have? We've got Nick Nash, right? Nick Nash is on the short list. He's a slot receiver. You can look at that and go, okay, 66, 68, 85. Smaller school, though, San Jose State with the Spartans. His best game was against Kennesaw State, if that tells you anything, right? It's not like he played a bunch of great, talented teams. So I'm going to pass on that. The fact that he's pretty much a slot receiver, 514 snaps in the slot, and a smaller school. It's tough, man. That's a tough pick right here. Jalen Noel. Now, we had a couple of wide receivers we were real big on. Jalen Noel might be one. Jalen Noel, 62, 75, 80 are his PFF grades. So pretty solid there. I'm trying to think, there was one we fell in love with, which was Trey Harris. He's long gone, I'm sure. Any other wide receivers that grab our attention? Not really. In terms of offensive linemen, I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to take a swing on Charles Grant here. His average draft position is 73.8. All right, 73.8. And what pick are we? 87 right now. So this is great value. Tate Ratledge would be great value as well, although he's ranked 92nd, according to PFF, and Charles Grant's ranked 83rd. Yeah, I'm going to pull the trigger on Charles Grant and say it's going to be another tackle that we're looking to move to guard. We needed depth. In this situation right here, here's what I'm thinking. Just hear me out before I make the pick. I'm thinking move Elton to center, right? Kick Jordan Morgan over to left guard. So your starting offensive line is Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. And now you got Charles Grant coming in to fight for that backup role. That's what I'm thinking here. Again, it makes it tough because there's no centers, right? And how often do the Packers draft a true guard? Think about that. When was the last time we drafted a true guard rather than a tackle and converted them to guard with a higher pick, right? Sean Ryan comes to mind. He was a third-round pick, but we know it took him 2 years to develop, right? So I'm going to go with Charles Grant in this. So we're going Charles Grant. Now we can mark one of the offensive linemen off. That pretty much answered our question to the center position, right? We're going to move Elton to center, or maybe it's Sean Ryan that moves there, and you try to create a competition at right guard. I like Elton at center. I think it's too important of a position. So next we've got wide receiver is still a need in terms of like someone to compete with the starting position. We're not going to get it. In this scenario here, imagine if we had signed Chris Godwin in free agency. You know what I'm saying? You've got that need filled. Christian Watson won't be back till probably around week 12. Feel better about your wide receiver core. To me, the wide receivers just didn't shake out the way we wanted to right here, right? And, of course, we're not going to spend an early pick on one that we know that we don't know for sure is going to be a solid contributor, right? So, wide receiver, offensive line. Let's go through it again here. Wide receiver. Let's go interior. Let's go offensive tackle because the Packers love offensive tackle switching to guard. Let's add corner back in because that's a backup position. And now we're going to go ahead and throw into the fold linebacker as well. So right at the top of the list is Demetrius Knott Jr., linebacker. He is not on my short list. Let's see. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, offensive tackle. He's not on my list. Kobe King, linebacker. He's on the list out of Penn State. Let's take a look at him. Oh boy, 55. Then he jumped to an 83 and then stabilized at an 83 in 2024. Best game of the year was against Washington at home, 89.3. On the road in Oregon, a 75.2. Illinois at home, 82.5. At Wisconsin, a 80.2. Kobe King right now is the one I'm looking at. Let's see another linebacker potentially. Cody Simon out of Ohio State. What's he looking like? Dang. 80, 77, 89 out of Ohio State. 738 snaps too. So he played a lot of snaps this year. So linebackers starting to pop up here, right? Still got offensive line as well in the fold. Man, what would you guys think about a linebacker here? 4th round, 23rd pick. It's coming to me. It's coming down to Kobe King or Cody Simon. All right. Again, PFF wise, 83 and 83. Cody Simon, 89 and 77. So pretty solid there. Run defense grade for Cody Simon's a 90.4. Coverage grade is 76.3. So 90 and 76 for Cody Simon. 89 and 65 for Kobe King. I'm going to go Cody Simon here. Average draft spot is 158. So we're taking him a little bit significantly early than most people do, but he's ranked 134th. What if he's there later? Kobe King, it's pretty close, right? Kobe King, average draft position is 129, and we're picking at 123. That makes a little more sense if this is how our board actually looked, right? That's really interesting. I'm going to go, let's just take a look at Crenshaw Dixon and see worth it. It's pretty solid there, actually, 72 and then 80.3. Right tackle and left tackle, so he's a tackle that's played both sides of the line. Is linebacker that important? Let's think here a second. Let's say that McDuffie and Eric Wilson are both gone, and let's say we don't sign anybody in free agency. This would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? To draft another guy to compete with Tyron Hopper. So, really, really interesting pick here. This is the stuff. These are the tough decisions you got to make. I'm gonna go Cody Simon, I believe. Not Cody Simon. I'm gonna go Kobe King here. I'm gonna go Kobe King, I believe. Let me just take a look at this guard here. It's Tyler Cooper at guard. Yeah, let's go Kobe King here. Just because PFF says it's going to be a better pick here. And listen, we're going to get horrible grades on this because we're drafting by the needs that we think we have, and PFF sees the needs much different most of the time. But so we got us one of those 2 linebackers we needed as a backup, right? So now we're at the 5th round, pick 23, which is the overall pick of 160. Let's add the needs back onto the board. Let's throw a wide receiver. Let's throw both tackle and interior offensive line. Let's put cornerback back up there, and let's put linebacker back up there. So now our needs are showing 2 offensive linemen, 2 cornerbacks, 1 linebacker, and 1 wide receiver. That's kind of how we're looking. All right. Demetrius Knight is just dropping like a rock. What's going on there, I wonder? That's really – maybe there's some injuries we don't know about. I don't know, but that's really interesting. I don't have him on my short list, so we're going to stay away from him. You notice I'm working my short list as we go through here, and we're kind of cross-checking with PFF to see, hey, would this be a good spot to take said player, right? Wide receiver is Lacey on there. He is not. Jake Majors, here's a center, guys. Jake Majors, he made my short list. Let's take a look. Let's take us a look. Jake Majors. Pass block grade, 85.4. PFF grade, 63, 70, and 72. So he's gotten better every year. He's a true center, right? True center. Is he starting caliber? That's the question, right? He's a hell of a pass blocker. True pass block grade of 84.6. Now his run blocking, about the 3/4 mark, a little above, 68.2. Zone grade right above the medium mark. Gap grade above the 3/4 mark. It kind of makes a lot of sense, don't it? What happens to Jake Monk, though, right? What would happen to Jake Monk? What is this? Lacey is going to prison. J. Cole, is that true? Is that true? If that is not true, sir, hell, he said it twice. That must be true. I don't mean to laugh. What's he going to prison for, Jay? Is this real? Eddie, now see, this is how rumors get started. Now you got 2-0 for this at Eddie Lacy? J. Cole, you're going to have to explain yourself, sir. Call in. 1-800-75. I'm just kidding. We don't have a number. What are you talking about? Lacey is going to prison. We're at the 49-minute mark trying to finish a mock draft, and you said Lacey's going to prison. What are we talking about here, sir? I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat for it. We got to make a pick. This is the stress of the war room here, right? Jay Higgins. Jay Higgins. Deadfish just said it. Jay Higgins. That's a name I keep coming across when building out these little exercises. Jay Higgins is a dog, right? 68, 89, 89. Do we take another linebacker here? Where's his average draft position? 165. Hit and run. So that's real? Holy cow. Yeah, so let's back up and punt here a second. So he's talking about Lacey, right? The wide receiver Lacey, Kyron Lacey. Hit and run. Stupid kid saw the video. He just ran off. LSU wide receiver Eddie Lacy. Yep. Holmes says this show sucks. That's true as well. J. Cole, the wide receiver from LSU, killed someone in an accident and left the scene. God, that's heartbreaking. Lord have mercy. Let's just cancel the rest of the draft, man. That depressed the hell out of me. But thanks for mentioning that. We don't want to draft him, right? Let's be honest about that. Deadfish, you made me mad now, dude. This makes this so much more difficult. What it really comes down to is Jake Majors or Jay Higgins for me, because Jay Higgins is a dog. Jake Majors isn't near as good as Jay Higgins, in my opinion. But at this point, we've kind of made the decision with the earlier pick that Elton Jenkins is going to be playing center for us, right? So let's do it. Let's go Jay Higgins. He's too damn good. All right, we took another linebacker. So we're done with linebacker. Nobody, don't at me. We're not drafting another linebacker, although I think we just got, one more pick, 2 more picks. So, all right, here we go. Graham Mertz, you guys want him, right? Quarterback. I'm just joking. Didn't he play at Wisconsin and you guys hated him? Am I thinking right? All my Wisconsin fans out there. I don't know why. I'm just thinking Graham Mertz played in Wisconsin. I might have dreamed that too. Anyway, let's load up the needs here. Let's go wide receiver. We're going to go interior, offensive line, and offensive tackle. And then we're going to go cornerback. All right, let's see what shakes out here. So you got Cypress the second. He is not on my short list. Tackle Holland Pierce is not on the short list. I know that. Xavier Truss is not. Longer Beam isn't. Samuel Brown, Zakir Franklin, Mac McWilliams. You guys remember we were talking about him just a second ago, weren't we? He's on the short list. His PFF grades. Did we finally lock it up? We might have finally locked up PFF. That would suck if the draft just crashed on us. 74, 66, and then an 81. Got a little bit of experience in the slot and in the box. So combined slot and box, over 90 snaps, and then 428 on the corner. Played pretty good on the road at Florida, 73.8. Arizona, 76.2 at home. So that's one that's popping up right now. There's Kobe Bryant, right? If you're going to take corner, you want to compare those two for sure. Yeah, let's look at Kobe Bryant. I think we liked Kobe a little bit more, didn't we? His run defense is what was really solid about Kobe. 70, 77, and 80 for Kobe. And then Mac McWilliams was a 74, 66, and an 81. In terms of size, Kobe Bryant is 6'1", and Mac McWilliams is 5'10". I say we go Kobe Bryant here. Heck of a name to draft, right? Let's do it. Let's go Kobe. As Joseph says, Kobe. You guys know that if you're a Chappelle fan. Average draft position 212. We're taking him at 199. I like it. Let's take another corner right there. Bang. So we're filling the corner room out now. We're a little light at offensive line on this mock, guys. Let's load it up again. Offensive tackle. This is a final pick. Let's throw wide receiver up there just for craps and giggles. And we'll put corner again as well. Let's see who's best available. All right, I got a few wide receivers shaking loose here, right? We got LeJohntay Wester, right? He's one that's popping up. I've got him wrote down on the short list here out of Colorado, 70, 82, and 73. He is where are his snaps at? Why is it not showing me his snaps all of a sudden? It's not showing where he lined up. Oh, there's slot snaps. Yeah. So he's a slot receiver. Slot receiver, 5'11", 167 out of Colorado, played for Dion over there. LeJohntay West is on the short list here. Julian Fleming is not at wide receiver. Bo Collins is not. Joshua Gray, I don't believe is. No, Joshua Gray is not. BJ Adams. There's Marcus Ware. We talked about him from Montana State. I feel like we need to go offensive line here rather than wide receiver. But LeJohntay's just, he seems like that's the best pick. Average draft position, 229, right? We're getting him at 251. Wide receiver, it's showing as a top need, too, according to PFF. J. Cole, look at me trying to sell me on him. He's a good kick returner, too. That's right. We're going LeJohntay Wester. All right. Out of Colorado, wide receiver. There you go. Bang. So the needs that we still had left here, guys, and I'm sure PFF will hate this, and that's okay, this whole draft. They actually give us a B-. That's not horrible. But the needs we have left going into undrafted free agency, if we were to play it this way, obviously Elton Jenkins kicks the center. We go out and we ended up drafting a tackle in the third round, Charles Grant. He's going to compete for the backup guard swing spot, right? So you got a little bit of depth there. But, man, the thought of us only drafting one offensive lineman in this draft, that's pretty crappy. You know what I mean? I don't like the way that feels. Going into signing undrafted free agents, and you're still needing 2 offensive linemen to fill out your roster. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of a tough look for me, man. Anyway, here's our draft. Pick 23, defensive lineman Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Got an A- for that one. Pick 55 in the second round, Zy Alexander. We got a C for that. He's a cornerback out of LSU. Round 3, pick 87, tackle Charles Grant out of William & Mary. We got a B for that one. Round 4, pick 123, Kobe King, linebacker out of Penn State, C+. Round 5, 160, linebacker Jay Higgins. We got a C for that one. Round 6, we went cornerback again with Kobe Bryant. We got a C for that out of Kansas. And then round 7, pick 251, we went with wide receiver LeJohntay Wester out of Colorado. We got a B+ for that pick. So that draft rank, according to the mock drafts that have went up, and listen, it's PFF that's grading it, right? So who's to say they're right and anyone else is wrong? But saying we're in the top 57% with that draft class. So I'm going to screenshot it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I want to run it by the guys if Tim's back in here for the morning show and see what he thinks about it. He's going to laugh his ass off that we did a mock draft. I promise you that. And that's really the whole reason we're doing it. So what do you guys think about it? How y'all feel about that? How y'all feel about that draft class there? Again, Kenneth Grant going to compete in that interior defensive line room. We need more pressure on the quarterback. We talked about that, right? We need the 3 tech of the future. Kenneth Grant may be that. I would be really, really surprised if Kenneth Grant was available when we pick. I mean, I just don't see that happening. If we go to the consensus big board and see where he's ranked, Kenneth Grant, as it sits right now, is sitting in a 21 spot. He peaked at 17. They've got him mocked to go number 22 to the Chargers right before we picked. So I think we did good with that pick for sure. Zy Alexander, I personally liked. I don't know why PFF was a little down on the pick. I would be okay with him being a draft pick. Kenneth Grant going to eat, says Joseph. Here we go. Kenneth Hammond, any old lineman that can play tight end. I like the way you're thinking there, Bob. I like the way you're thinking. Let's see. Deadfish earlier said, would you pick Kobe King if you thought you could pick Jay Higgins? I would not have, Deadfish. No way, no how. Jay Higgins was just too good to pass up on right there, right? Jay Higgins is one of my favorite linebackers in this draft. And it just seems like those guys coming out of Iowa, they're dogs, man. Yeah, to answer your question, Deadfish, I wouldn't have. I should have scrolled ahead a little bit, right? And that's where we're trying to do this kind of flying blind. I'm just going off a little cheat sheet with my top prospects and a notepad. We're kind of combing through the top 5 available, according to PFF. If we were doing a real draft, the horizontal board is huge. Let me explain to you what I mean by the horizontal board. The horizontal board is the positions are listed across the top of the board, right? And then they're positioned vertically based off their grade. So what it does is the horizontal board, I mean, it talks to you. The horizontal board, you can see where there's clusters of players. And the reason I mention this, Deadfish, is in that situation, if we were drafting, we had the horizontal board, we would have seen Jay Higgins probably would have been higher on the board than Kobe King would have been. but that's not the point. We would have seen a cluster of players and we'd have went, okay, there's a chance. All right, he's mocked to go a little bit later. We could probably get him with the next pick. Now you risk losing them both if they're the only two linebackers in that cluster, right? When you pick, but yeah, that's to answer your question. If I knew we could get Jay Higgins with that 160 pick, I would not have taken Kobe King with 123. No doubt about it. So I would much rather just come away with one linebacker and then add another linebacker on the roster from an undrafted free agent standpoint instead of having to add two undrafted free agents at offensive line. But again, that's why you do these exercises, man. It's a lot of fun. So that's me, Braden. Braden's like, I can't figure out why Jay Higgins is so low. He should be higher. Here's the thing, too, Braden, is like, this is PFF's website, right? And our boy Jay Higgins has got crazy good PFF grades. So why is he falling? Is there an injury? Do you guys know of an injury with Jay Higgins out there? I haven't heard of any injury. I could have overlooked it, though. So, I don't know. It's just interesting. So, all right, that's it, guys. There's our first mock draft. We probably lost 3 subs. That's okay because I know some people hate it, but why not kill a little bit of time here on the back side of the show when it's just me, and let's jump in here and do a mock draft. So I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. This was a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody. I mean, everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. I wish I could be more interactive when we're flying solo like this. I just don't want a whole lot of dead air of me reading the comments. And you got knuckleheads like Eric Sutherland and AFAM that'll have you read something highly inappropriate live on YouTube and get banned. So you got to be really careful with those dirt bags. Although there are dirt bags. Eric Sutherland's on the Mount Rushmore PTA listeners, that's for sure. But AFAM is just kind of everybody's whipping boy, right? So there you go. All right. Appreciate it, guys. This was fun. 2-0 for this. Sums it up. This show be sucking. This show do be sucking. It do be. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you in the morning for Good Morning Lambeau. Tomorrow we get the national championship, so we won't do a night show tomorrow. We're going to be watching that game. I thought about doing a live watch party if you guys wanted to watch the national championship and kind of do a show live, but that doesn't make for a good podcast, and I would definitely want to keep that in mind that we got podcast listeners out there. There's Eric Sutherland. LOL. Later, folks. Go Pack Go. We'll see you, Eric. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, we'll see y'all in the morning. Everybody have a great night. Take care.
And we go. We out.
We're out. Bye, guys.